What was your dream as a kid?
Mm, Horrible question to ask me because I feel like it was always changing. Um, I think I don't know. I think I always wanted to be something weird and kooky that I don't know, that I'd never really had a frame of reference for in my own life. Like I started off knowing that I had the mission to help other people. At first I wanted to be the Pope. That was like my first ever dream job. Not
Wow.
possible for me, but like that was the goal as like a very small child. And then I grew up really into my local town's political scene and thinking that I could make a change through policy, and then I realized how slow that was. um, and then I moved over to journalism because I think like storytelling is the most powerful tool that we have. So I think the thing that I always wanted to be was somebody that helped other people, and worked really closely with people who are at the margins to try and make things better for them.
Amazing. Well, couldn't pull off the Pope, but you're one step away in the journalism
Right.
world.
Exactly.
So, how did your journey kind of unfold? Like from being a kid and realizing you couldn't be the Pope, you started like getting into writing at a young age, or can you just kind of walk me through how that began a little bit?
Yeah, I've always been a writer. That's not even true. I think I've always been a very voracious reader. I think literacy's always been really at the core of everything that I do. I was that kid that like was always in the libraries and just renting out stacks and stacks and stacks of books. And I don't know. I think through various initiatives that I worked on, I just realized that like words had so much more power than I originally thought. Um, so at first, I was into the political scene because I was always being asked to give speeches on behalf of like smaller initiatives throughout my hometown in Jersey. And I think that the the power to get up on a podium and speak on behalf of a group and see change affected was really exciting for me. So then I thought, like, I went to college, I did political science, I thought that's what I was going to do. And I realized very quickly that that's process is way too slow for me. And you don't really get
Hmm.
to, I don't know, you don't get to see the immediate impact of change when you're in these like stuffy halls and you're working in Congress. Like, it takes years for something you work on to like have an effect, and I was very impatient. So in undergrad I started a podcast. I was the head of the Primero Ses podcast on my campus, and that got me a Glamour Woman of the Year award, which was like crazy, and it was during the pandemic, and it was basically nothing but also the biggest thing I had ever done. And I think that moment kind of solidified for me, like, okay, I think media and storytelling is where I'm going to go long term. And then I went to grad school, did the grad school thing, and now I'm a full time
Hmm.
writer editor.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's really interesting that like we want to make change, and one way to do it is through political science, and that's seems like the most direct route. But then through writing and through like this is what I've found that just being able to tell your story in kind of any way that you want, and that means you can the dream is to write about whatever you want to write about. um, but that just gives more voice to these kind of unseen people and looked at kind of pockets of life. And that's like, I mean, the story that I found of yours that really made me interested in what you're doing is like the music scene in Medellin in Colombia, right?
Yes.
Um, I think that's such a just an interesting niche sort of thing. But then, through writing and through like how many publications there are out there in the world right now, there's so many avenues to show these little interesting pockets of life. And that's why I think it's beautiful to be a writer and to just be curious. Like that's, I think, where it all derives from. And so, what was the? Can you explain just what the Glamour Woman of the Year? What does that? What does that mean?
It was so weird. It was like they had like they so Glamour magazine does their call, this tentpole coverage series called like the Women of the Year. They have a college division, and they go out and they pick like 10 to 15 women across the country in college who are like doing something big, transforming communities, like using their voice to
Hmm.
I don't know, bring about change in their communities. And I was selected for my podcast back in 2020. The pandemic had
Hmm.
happened. It was like the summertime. I was still doing this podcast with my co-host at the time and one of my best friends, and the two of us were kind of just talking into the ether and talking about like our podcast was about what it means to be like, or finding the power in being the first to do something. We were both first generation college students. I was a first generation American. And we'd talk to like first time business owners and first generation college students and like first time actor, like people who were going um deviating from the paths that were kind of set out before them, and like how difficult that is.
Hmm.
And I don't know, they sent me an email and were like, hey, your podcast is opening up representation for Latinas in the industry, and we're really excited about it. And at the time it felt like nothing because I just got an email, and then I did a Zoom interview, and that was pretty much all that came from that. But then like, I don't know, I was on the Glamour magazine site for that year, and my story was like the first one that popped up, and it was, I don't know, it was, didn't feel like a ton at the time, but looking back at it, it's like, okay, yeah, I was a woman of the year for something. That counts. Um
Yeah.
it's like fun, but it also I think was just a moment where, I don't know, talking to my best friend in my childhood bedroom about like issues of representation and issues of I guess you could say like inspiration and finding empowerment in like really challenging situations, made enough of a difference for me to be recognized. And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, like this is something I can do long term, and people were noticing at the time. Like that podcast had like 100 followers on Instagram. Like I didn't know anybody had cared about it, but it
Hmm.
made enough of an impact to get national recognition. So that was what that meant for us. Yeah.
That's super cool. And that's obviously inspiring to me, being that it's me and my best friend. He does, like, we kind of switch off episodes and sometimes we do them together. But it does feel, we've been doing it for like 5 years. Sometimes it does feel like we're just doing it for ourselves or doing it for our small group of people who are listening. But then you never know who is listening, and you never know, who it's going to impact. And often it's like one person just tells us how much of an impact we're having. It's like, wow, okay, it's for something. We're doing this for a reason. And if nothing else, it's cool. It's like, it's a way for like me to reach out and meet people like you who are doing awesome stuff. And it's, if I could just encourage anyone who's listening, it's like, you don't need a big reason to start something or to dream big. It's like, do it because the actual act of doing it is the point. Like, that's the enjoyable part, and you just don't know what's going to come from it. And that kind of leads me into asking, did you, like, for me, even talking to you, it's pretty cool because I've been a writer for since I graduated university in 2017. I studied journalism, but didn't even like writing. I didn't think I was going to be a writer, but then I started traveling and writing, and that's when it really took off for me. Like, wow, I love traveling, and I love just telling stories about these people and these adventures I'm having. And since then, like, I've been on this path of trying to figure out how to make it as a writer, how to make it as a travel writer. And I'm sure you know that there's so many avenues, like through writing on Medium and Substack and whatnot, but then also kind of going the advanced route, which is trying to get into like magazines and like going big and getting the bylines and stuff. And that is what I'm finally trying to do. And I've been doing the whole, like, publishing on my own for years, but I'm really trying to get into just this world of writing and, like, editing and working with professionals and such. And um, saying all that because it's like, you're the first person I've talked to. It's like who's really doing it. And I think for a long time I was afraid to put myself out there and say that this is what I truly want to do. And it feels like a big moment to be talking to you and say all that, because like, did you always, as a kid and growing up, and did you imagine this kind of exciting and life for yourself where you're making a difference and like doing something, that's, dare I say, like your dream life? Or what did, I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah. First thing I do want to say is I think like just hearing you talk about, I don't know, your journey and the path that you're on now. I do want to say to you and to everybody listening, like don't discount the promise and the prowess of having your own thing. Having bylines
Mm,
in big publications is great. It is wonderful. I will never discount like the opportunities and the access that having bylines in these big publications has done for me. But I think at the end of the day, where you're able to make your most fulfilling work and also the work that like takes you to where you want to go, like and gives you the recognition from these like gatekeepers is always going to be the
hmm.
work that's independently owned and independently run. Like I
Right.
started off my career in a college radio station doing whatever I wanted, and that got me over to working at NPR. Um, and I'm gonna be honest, like I've worked at NPR, I've worked at WNYC, I've worked at Afar, like I've worked at a couple like publications all over. I have bylines in like so many places that people are always saying like this is a huge deal and you should feel so great about it. But I've never felt more invested in my own creative process and felt more confident about the work that I've done than when I was independent and when I was working for myself.
Mm,
So to everybody out there who's like, well, I'm making work and nobody's seeing it, and nobody cares about it, and whatever else, there is nothing more powerful than being on your own journey and creating your own thing for yourself. And people will try to tell you that, like, having the traditional route and taking all like checking off the boxes is what's going to bring you like the prestige and the joy and everything else. But a lot of times, like, the journey that it takes to get those bylines and like the things that you have to sacrifice and
hmm.
the negotiating that you have to do with yourself and other people can sometimes make it not feel as sweet as like when you're doing things entirely on your own. So that's just like my little nugget there. But I mean, when I think about like this journey and like imagining, I think I was always meant to be a journalist. Like I think and meant to be a writer. And because of where I grew up and the set of circumstances I came from, like that was never really an option or a possibility for me. Like I grew up in a town where if you were successful, you were one of three things, right? Like you were a doctor or a nurse, you were a lawyer, or you were a teacher. And those were kind of like the three career paths that existed. Anything outside of that, like, wasn't real, wouldn't make you money. You were going to be broke. You were going to be a loser. Like, nothing was going to ever happen for you. Um, and so I think the way that I found this career and the way that I found like my quote unquote dream life is just by always being okay with sacrificing stability and comfort and being okay with chasing the thing that made me feel good in the immediate moment. Lots of my friends disagree with
Mm,
me. Lots of my friends have very cushy jobs and love their 401k investments at the end of the year and whatever else. And I just never felt comfortable whenever I was working in those kinds of positions, and I never really lasted. Um,
hmm.
so this kind of journey came about through being okay with at every turn saying, okay, I don't know what's going to happen next week, and I don't know what next week is going to look like, and finding the joy and the excitement in that rather than like the fear and the worry and the anxiety. Because like media is
Hmm.
not a stable industry. I've been laid off twice in my career, and I've been laid off twice. I'm not even 30. So like this industry is super rocky, and you never know when you're going to get the chop. compared to, I don't know, industries that are a lot more stable. But also, I think the work that I do fuels me and it fuels other people. And it's helped me build a community that makes me say, okay, I'm okay with not having stability from a financial or even from like a like career perspective, but I'm okay with having the stability of knowing that my passion is fueling me and knowing that my community is fueling me.
Mm. Do you feel like you have a good sense of who you are?
Sometimes I feel like I have a great sense of who I am when I am on the ground doing my reporting, when I am in isolation by myself, like not in isolation, but when I'm off in a new place by myself. Um, and when I am with like my loved ones. I think that when it comes to being in the industry, there are a lot of voices, there are a lot of people that have specific ideas about what your career path should look like, what your long term goals should look like, what you like. So people just have this idea of what it means to be a writer in their head.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I'm in those spaces with not necessarily with other writers, but like other industry people, I can start to feel my sense of self. Like it feels a lot more like it's slipping away from me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I think that's kind of the industry life is like constantly being tested um, on your morals and your values and like who you think you are and your sense of self, and constantly being in
Mm-hmm.
conversation with people who think that you're not doing things the right way.
Mm-hmm. How do you think you've grown from that? From like, so just because I'm a writer, I will be kind of using myself as a foil, I guess,
Yeah.
with your experience of kind of going more of the just do my own thing route. And that means just like publishing on Medium and Substack. But so I haven't had the kind of professional oversight of an editor or, a magazine. Whereas I think you have, and you get the, that kind of experience. But as you're saying, like it is a lot of just dealing with other people's, um, goals and what they think is best for the brand and everything. Can you just explain how maybe you've grown through that and how that has maybe hindered you?
Yeah. I think the first thing I will say is like taking a quote unquote traditional path in media and being like on staff somewhere. The number one thing you learn is, I think, you strengthen your ability to write for a brand voice. You strengthen your
Mm-hmm.
ability to understand a brand's desires and audience, and you kind of divorce yourself from as a writer from the work that you're putting out in a lot of sometimes exciting ways. Um, I think that as an editor, it's really cool to get a piece of work from somebody and be able to see like what is really great about the piece, but also like how your knowledge is like this interlocutor between the brand that the person is writing for and the writer themselves. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how to like serve as that kind of bridge for not just making a good piece, but making a good piece for a very specific art audience and a brand with very
Mm-hmm.
specific goals and ideals and values. Um, but also, I think that a lot of times writing in that space can make you question your instincts, right? Like, there have been so
Mm.
many stories that I've pitched throughout, like, throughout the past 5-ish years um, where I just knew that story was going to hit and I knew it was going to take off and I knew that there was an audience for it. But the show I was working on or the publication I was working for, just like it wasn't aligned with their brand voice. And so
Mm-hmm.
it'll be super frustrating to go out and like pitch a story and in 6 months see a different publication do the exact same story and low key a little bit worse than you would have done it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I think I felt the tensions, and like the difficulties of being in industry. But on the whole, like I think my message for anybody who wants to be a writer and who is figuring out the pitching game and or wants to apply to these places, I think the healthiest and the smartest thing you can do is research the publication that you're working for and ditch the idea of what makes a good story, because a good story is a good story on its own, and that's great. But a good story might not be the right fit for the brand that you're working for. And so you want to get in the habit of pitching a great story that will work for this very specific brand voice and this very specific brand audience. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and understand that, like, if you don't get land a pitch, oftentimes it's not because the story is bad, it's because that wasn't the right home for it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like those are I think the biggest lessons and takeaways that being on the inside and being in industry has given me. um and like the biggest things I can tell other people, like, don't feel super discouraged if you're pitching and your stories aren't sticking or they're not landing, because oftentimes it's probably a great story, it's probably just not the right place. And so don't chase like the clout of the brand or the ambitions of the brand, chase like the right home for your story.
Mm. That's super interesting, and I think it's just a good message for like life in general. It's we feel like sometimes if we're not accepted by a certain group or city or anything, it's like, oh, there's something wrong with me, and I'm clearly doing something wrong, instead of being like, no, I believe in what I'm doing, I believe in who I am, and I just haven't found the correct home yet. And that doesn't mean, there's something wrong with what you're doing it. And it's just an interesting thing about life. It's like
Yeah.
we are so hard on ourselves, and because we're not accepted by this standard of the way that things are supposed to be, so it gets pretty muddy, I guess. um would you change anything about your journey so far, the way that's panned out? And I imagine you're in your early 20s, mid 20s,
I
so just kind of getting started. So
Yeah.
but
I don't know. I think I definitely change a lot about um my career trajectory thus far. I think going back to what you just said, I spent so much of the beginning of my career um trying to place myself in rooms that weren't ecstatic for me to be there. Like I was always trying to force my way into institutions and organizations that just like weren't ready for me or my vision. And instead of like staying steadfast and like trusting my gut, I think I found lots of ways to contort myself and make myself more palatable for these places. And in some ways that
mm,
served me, but in a lot of ways I think that it's brought me to a place right now where I don't know, I just keep seeing all of the signs as like I like all of the signs that I was doing the right thing when I wanted to do them and I had the right instinct. I just was asking for approval from the wrong people, because they had fancy names. And I love when my resume is stacked with all these like special names and whatever else. So yeah, I think I'd go back and change that and take more of a risk on myself and my vision. Because I just spent so much time generating likes and clicks and engagement for like organizations that weren't me and that at the end of the day were very like could at any moment be very okay with like kicking me to the curb. um
hmm
and I don't know, I think there's a lot there. I would take a lot more ownership of my intuition in my career. That's like the only thing I would change.
hmm. That's awesome. And like how for young people listening to this and just, it's mostly people in 20s and 30s, I think. Um, like how do you find that confidence in yourself to believe yourself kind of over the noise and the fact that it's so human and so easy to want the approval of these people with the fancy names, and they seem like they're in a higher place than you, but sometimes we definitely we change ourselves trying to fit in and trying to please others. Like for people who do know what they perhaps would love to do with their life, yet the family or the friends say it's the wrong thing or not the safe thing. Like, how do you, no, just have some words to give some confidence for people to believe in themselves?
Yeah. I'm gonna say something that I truly hope none of my future employers hear. And I'm most definitely going to get in trouble for saying, but like
Perfect.
9 times out of 10, the people that are making decisions don't have any idea what they're doing, especially in media. I will tell you, oh, this is like I'm committing a sin and I'm never going to get hired again. I can't wait.
Let's go.
But but I've been in so many rooms with executives who just have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to the editorial integrity of their brand, who are kind of just winging it and making decisions not based on long-term potential, not based on like the like a 5 or 10 year vision, but are making decisions kind of on the fly in the immediate moment. And they like the majority of the media executives I know were never journalists. They don't know what it
Hmm.
takes to write a great story. They can't write a great story. Um that's just like the truth and the tea of it all. Like I talk to young writers all the time because I'm very involved with mentorship and helping younger writers develop and grow. And I think the number one thing I tell them is like your intuition is never wrong. Your intuition is never wrong. And when an executive or when a like somebody in like a very like high position of leadership is telling you like you don't know what you're talking about, I always say like take stock of what they're doing in the current moment and tell me if you think that they are as cutting edge as you'd want them to be. 9 times out of 10, you'll get somebody like I've done so many audits of like this is gonna be so bad. I've done audits of like former managers of mine where I look at like what they're writing and I'm like, your writing isn't top performing on this site. And yet you're telling me what's going to hit and what isn't. You're telling me what's going to resonate and what doesn't with audiences. And I'm like, but if we go based off of your track record in this current moment, a lot of times it's not resonating with like what they're telling me I need to do. Um, and then I'll go out and I'll see stories that like I pitched or that are similar to something that like I've gotten rejected, and I'll go out and see that story do well somewhere else, right? So
Hmm.
the tool sharpening for me, the tool sharpening advice I have for other people is like if you are getting a lot of no's, take stock of where you're getting the no's from, who you're getting the no's from, and also go out and go out and make us if you're a writer, go out and make a spreadsheet and make a spreadsheet of every single pitch and story idea you've ever had rejected and revisit it every 6 months and go out and search like if you pitched a headline, go out and search that headline on Google. And if you see that there's a story out there and that it's like doing well in search, and like it has a similar headline to the one that you pitched, that's how you know you're on the right track. Like and
Hmm.
then go and take the stock. Go and look at the people that are telling you no and see if their work is resonating or not. And if the answer is no, then you just kind of have to take the lessons that they're giving you with a grain of salt, like understand and be humble and acknowledge that you're young and that you still have things to learn, and there's probably some nugget of advice in all of that rejection that can help you moving forward. And also
Hmm.
just like don't put too much stock in what the gatekeepers are saying, because a lot of the gatekeepers aren't going to be here in 5 years. There's a lot of turnover in leadership across media. There's a lot of turnover in where people are. And it's because people who say that they know what they're doing and have the positions that would make you think that they know what they're doing are oftentimes just trying to figure it out as desperately as you are.
100%. I kind of realized this when I started to see, I was just thinking about this recently, that my parents, well, I realized this like 5 years ago. I'm like, wow, my parents are just trying to figure it out just as much as I am. Like, doesn't we don't get to a certain point in life where it's like, oh, you figured it out, you got everything is good, and you're not like trying to understand life anymore. It's just a never ending process, and like the CEOs, the people who we think are so much more advanced than us, like you just said, they are really just trying to figure it out just as much as we are. And that obviously does come with experience, starting to understand that, because when you're young and trying to make your way in the world, it's very, you know, yeah, we think that the person who's the gatekeeper or the person who is making the decisions clearly has the answers, yet it's just not it's not the case. We're all, trying to figure this thing out together. And that is just, with that mentality, it's like, as I am trying to get my foot in the door of this world and everything, it's like, just because you're rejected, or just because even if somebody says like your thing is wrong or whatever, that may have nothing to do with you. And like we said before, it could just be the wrong place, or just the wrong time, um, for that experience to happen. So keep that in mind. Um, Looking back in you know, your path so far, what would you say is, well, kind of take a different road here. So it's very much like a game that we're playing, right? Like in the world of media and just in the world of professionalism in general. And I think for me and you would probably both agree that we don't want to play this game. Like we trust our intuition more, and we feel like, we have an understanding of the life that we want to live, and that's kind of an unorthodox kind of life. Do you think like I think well, do you think there is a way to, what I'm trying to say is like, what do you think the relationship is between playing the game and really trusting yourself, and kind of saying, no, I'm not gonna play this game? And this comes up. Um, this writer Robert Greene has this book Human Nature, and it's all about like understanding the ways that people think, and kind of playing into human nature of people to progress in the professional world and whatnot. Anyways, long-winded question, but like, what do you think the relationship between kind of trusting yourself versus like really saying like, I have to, if I wanted to do this, if I want to grow in this field, I have to play this game?
Yeah. I think that's something I'm still kind of struggling with, even though, I don't know, I say things very publicly all the time that do not align with somebody who likes to play the game. Um, but I think that I think my biggest piece of advice to anybody working any job who wants to advance in their career, but also wants to innovate and explore and um, disrupt in some ways, even though I don't love that word in the career world, but everybody likes to use it. I think if you're going to be an innovator and a disruptor, you have to be taking stock constantly, and you have
Hmm.
to be doing an audit all 24/7. And you always have to ask yourself, like, is playing this game for right now, or is like falling in line and bending my head and not making a stir in this current moment, is that going to set me up in 5 years or even in like 5 months to get me closer to where I want to go? And you have to be really
Hmm.
sure about what it is or where it is that you want to go. Because a lot of people will say, I
Mm.
want to be successful. But what does success actually look like? Because for some people, success is just money. For some people, success is just money. And if that's your goal, there are so many ways to get like a quick bag, or like, or to cash in a very quick check. But if success has a different meaning for you, if success means being able to retire early, or success means being recognized within my industry as like a an important voice, an important and valued and trusted voice, or if success looks
Hmm.
like creating your own thing and having 20,000 followers, you have to really take stock of what the definition of success is for yourself, and then make every decision kind of accordingly. If your goal is to be a respected and trusted voice in the industry that you're working in, then it makes sense to have some more, I guess you would say, interpersonal conflict on the things that you're working on, right? Because you want to
Hmm.
show the people that you're working with that you care about the work, and that you care about authenticity, and that you care about integrity, and that you know better than other people. So you might pick a battle that I might not, because our definitions
Hmm.
of success are different. Playing the game ultimately is, to me, about taking the steps that you need to in this current moment to set you up for exactly where you want to go in the short and the long term. Um, and that
Mm.
means, like, if your goal is to get published in NPR, like, don't say, don't critique NPR publicly, and message them all the time on LinkedIn, and like message employees all the time on LinkedIn, and repost their stuff all the time. If that's like your definition of success, is getting a mention from them, or getting
Hmm.
published with them. If your definition of success is getting a certain number of followers, like, then that means that if you care more about followers, you can kind of bend the rules and play around a little bit more than other people can, because you're looking for growth, you're looking for engagement, and oftentimes that means taking risks and being a little bit more okay with upsetting people in the short term. So yeah, I think
Hmm.
I think when it comes to the politics of it all, I say don't play it for stupid reasons. I think a lot of people will
Mm.
just play the political game thinking, okay, this is going to get me success. And then success, once they reach that metric of success that their company deems is fitting for them, they'll realize very quickly, oh, this doesn't actually align with what I thought success was going to be. So, yeah, make the right bed before you lie in it is kind of my advice for people navigating any industry. Like, know exactly the sheets you're gonna get in between.
Yep.
Fun, fun little.
Beautifully said. No, that's a great. Yeah, it's like if you're gonna play it, you know, know why you're playing the game. And I would say 90%, well, it's completely random, but 90% of us are just playing this, and I keep, saying that, but we're living our lives kind of on autopilot because we are in a lane that is allegedly going to take us to this thing called success. And but I think that, there's a cost if you're just going to say I'm not going to play this game at all, which I've said repeatedly over the years, and then I keep finding myself in the place where, like, damn, like, what do I really have to do to get to where I want to go? And that for me ultimately is a life of freedom where I am creating my own hours. I'm getting paid for the work that I do and that I love to do, and I'm writing about things that I care about and that really excite me. um, I'm getting to travel. I'm not having to cater my life to doing things that I don't want to do. And but I'm realizing it's like I got to play this game a bit. I got to better understand how to mold, not change who I am, but mold myself into this different arena. And it's a delicate dance that comes with experience and comes with introspection and better understanding ourselves. And I just really like what you said of, know why you're doing it, because it's almost easier just to say, like, I don't want anything to do with it. And it takes like some real intelligence and, some, it takes work, to stay true to who you are, but also to, have to work with other people and understand other people and understand human nature and whatnot. And so, what would you say is success for you?
Oh, I think that's a question I'm still answering for myself. I'm so good at giving advice to other people because my life is a series of trial and errors, I think. Um, I don't know. I think success to me will ultimately look like being able to take control of the agendas and the narratives that I'm telling. I think ultimately what I want to do, like success to me looks like finding my audience, being able to speak to them consistently and put out stories to like that make my audience think more deeply and more intentionally about travel and the way that we kind of navigate like our cultural conversations at large, which is a very vague goal and a very vague like definition of success. um
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've never been the kind of person that says like money has never been a factor for me in my success, or so I thought. And then as I got
Mm-hmm.
older, I was like, oh, like I'm gaining more experience, I'm doing more exciting things, and like the pay that I thought was just automatically going to come with all of these milestones just isn't there. Um so I think it also means like having enough money to, I don't know, not have to worry about, I don't know, like not have to worry about anything and just be able to kind of live my life on my own terms, which is something
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming to terms with because I thought for a really long time like my definition of success doesn't have anything to do with money. I am so beyond that.
Yeah.
I'm like I thought I was so moral and principled and ethical in that sense, and it's like I don't know. It's not a bad thing to want to get compensated for the work that you make. And so I guess also on top of like being able to control my agenda and being able to control the conversations that I'm creating and finding an audience that connects with those conversations, I think it's also like having enough financial freedom to live on my own terms. Ooh, the fun, that's a very fun realization that comes when you are in this industry for 6+ years and you're like, ooh, that's what my retirement fund looks like. That that is where you earn that lesson.
Yeah, that is that's the great contrast with doing what we're doing. It's like we want the life the life that we strive to live is like exciting and living on our own terms and stuff, but then it's perhaps not the monetary reward is not as strong in doing types of jobs where it's not as free, and we don't get to kind of call the shots, and but there is more money. And I'm in the same boat. It's like I thought that it's something I don't really care about, but it's obviously I want the freedom to live life on my own terms, and money is a part of that. So we'll keep each other updated on that one. Hopefully it goes well in the end. But on that kind of notes, what would you say is like if you could just get paid enough to write about whatever you want to write about, and you don't have anybody telling you what to do, and like what's that look like for you?
Oh, that's so scary. I think I think the kinds of conversations I would have if I could if I could write whatever I wanted to write right now, I think it would mostly look like blending the ways that culture intersect with travel and how all of those things make us like think more deeply and more richly about our own lives and also like give us the inspiration to keep going. A lot of the work that I've done throughout my career has been kind of that intersection of like people spending crazy amounts of money to go live like their dream of visiting their favorite author's like birthplace, or seeing like their
Hmm.
favorite musician in concert, so they travel halfway across the globe to like go get there. And I think that that trend of, I don't know, like traveling for culture is something that drives me.
Hmm.
It's what I think when I'm planning a trip, it's what I think about most. And it also every single time gets me to connect with myself more deeply, with the communities that I'm like taking up space in more deeply. Um, and so, yeah, I think I'd just go somewhere. I'd go somewhere like, I'd probably go somewhere like, there's so many places. I'm trying to figure out if I should say these things out loud or if I should like keep them close to my chest. But I think I'd go. I like
Please, we
I'd make a
are.
I'd make a pilgrimage to like Houston, Texas, and do like a Beyonce trail for like a whole week, and then talk about how Beyonce is bringing um Houston to like another facet of the cultural conversation within the United States, but also just like how her work is platforming Black Southern culture, not just through her music, but like inspiring people to go out and see it in a more real and authentic way, and connecting people to corners of the world that they never expected they'd go to. Stuff like that.
Interesting.
Mm.
I mean, that's a great idea. Have you pitched that one? I think that'd have a big
Oh, oh,
audience.
oh, oh. I We're working on it. It's tough.
Yep.
It's tough. I will say there's not like there aren't a ton of travel outlets that like really care about cultural travel right now. But that doesn't mean that it's not important. And I
Hmm.
think that that's like that goes back to the message I have for pretty much anyone who wants to be a writer. It's like sometimes you're noticing a trend in an industry and there's not really room or space for it. And like sometimes what it's going to take is you going out there and like maybe you pitch it to, maybe it's a travel story that you pitch to not a travel outlet that would be more friendly to that kind of idea. Maybe you go out and make your own outlet. Because I don't know,
Hmm.
it feels like we're in a time in media right now where everybody's that's making their own thing hits gold after a couple of years. Like everybody that's dedicated and cares and is invested, they're gonna have their moment. Because the thing with like the thing I've noticed with podcasts, the thing I've noticed with writing, and I've fallen as somebody who's worked at these big button institutions, I've fallen victim to this. Like sometimes you have a great
Hmm.
idea, and if you don't stick with it long enough for it to hit, like you're just clearing out the pathway for everybody else to go find their success. I had a podcast before that did well, it like it got recognition, but like I didn't keep up with it, and so it died. And then a couple months later, somebody else did a very similar podcast and it hit like 2 years after the fact. So I was like, oh, shoot,
Hmm.
like, should have stuck with it. Like, I had a Substack and I was writing on it very regularly. And then I let it go and like pushed it to the wayside to go chase like the cushy like editor title or whatever. And like, I
Hmm.
see all these amazing people doing very similar writings, and I'm like, dang, this is a time where if you can't find your house in the industry, you got to go and build it yourself, and it's going to suck for like 4 or 5 ish years, but it's going to hit. I promise at some point it's going to hit, because everybody that doesn't stick, like the difference between the people that succeed and the people that don't in that realm for me are just like the people that stick with it and the people that fall off really fast. I've started so many ventures and kind of finished them out so quickly and let them burn out. And the people that end up sticking with it, they end up taking off. So if you really don't
Hmm.
find that home for your stories, go out and build it, but then stay with it for as long as you possibly can, or talk to
Hmm.
people and figure out why it's not hitting. And if they're like, okay, ditch it, then like go out and like make the 2.0 version.
Hmm.
Um, but don't I don't know how I got here, but like don't discount the importance of like really sticking to your mission and your message, because if you're noticing a trend, if you're noticing something out there, if you're seeing an audience that other people are not tapping into, at some point they are going to find you. Um
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't even know how I
Yeah.
got there.
We were talking about cultural travel, and then if you don't find a home, you got to build it yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good for me to hear because, like, I've been trying to build this home for quite some time, and I have stuck with it. I'm very proud of that, like with this podcast and with my writing online. And it's because like I write because it fills me up inside. Like I write about traveling and I write about just understanding myself and spirituality and psychology and just, you know, simple stories of like daily life and I've been bouncing back and forth for, you know, since I graduated of just like how it always feels like I'm like not figuring it out. I'm not seeing something correctly. So I'm like, what am I doing wrong? But then I realized that it really like the only reason to play the game, the point of the game is to just to keep playing.
Yeah.
And if you can stick it out long enough and find your why in that pursuit, like why are you doing what you're doing? And just keep revisiting that like when it gets hard, when you're in the valley and you don't see a point and you're not, especially for public facing pursuits such as writing, you got to keep asking yourself, why am I doing this in the first place? Like, is it to just be recognized by these strangers that I don't even know? Or is it because there's something inside of me that I got to share? And that's what's kept me going. And that's why I don't think I'm ever going to stop, even if I don't make money from the purely um, personal side of the writing that I do, I guess.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to what we were, sorry, do you have something?
Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off, but I did want to say too,
Please.
like, I think that struggle is so important. And also, it's so important to, like, put into context all of the people that we love and hold dear in, like, culture and look at their career trajectories when they were alive. Like, somebody that I love and admire and think about all the time is Jane Austen. Like, she is, like, my
Mm,
literary hero heroine. She is the like great writer of my life and somebody that I think about all the time. And she basically died like with like she had a little bit of success, but she didn't really die with as much recognition as she has now. Like there were like when she
hmm
was alive, she was making things move and whatever else because she was a woman writer, and it was like kind of salacious and exciting because no other woman had reached a certain level of fame at that time. But like people were paying her dust. There are so many incredible writers that we view in the canon right now, and like across journalism, across media, there are so many incredible figures that don't get their chance to shine until they're already gone. Like I also
hmm
think of Andre Leon Talley, who was this incredible fashion editor who worked at Vogue, and he was also a seamstress and just like this like titan in the fashion industry. And he
mm,
basically died penniless. Like he died with no money and not enough recognition. And not like last year's Met Gala theme was entirely based on him, right? So it's like
wow.
sometimes we also have to acknowledge that like when you're creative, and Toni Morrison has this great quote that I'm about to butcher, but she basically says like there's something about like the process of like struggling against the work is even more important than getting it published. Like finishing something is more important than getting it actually published into an audience. And like we have
Mm,
to remember, right, that like yes, we want money, yes, we want fame, but also like 9 times out of 10, people that like make money and get the fame really fast, they fizzle out really quickly. And also, when you look at some of like the big titans in the industry today that are working, you listen to their stuff or you read their stuff and you go, McDonald's is super popular. They have the most amount of restaurants in like on the planet. Like they are the most franchised restaurant on the planet, and nobody would really say that that's fine dining, right? Like nobody's gonna sit there and just because they're selling a lot of product, nobody's saying like this is like the best invention or like the best of the culinary world, right? And I think we have to understand that
right.
like if your goal is success and your goal is success on your own terms, then maybe you're not going to be McDonald's. Maybe you're not going to sell out and everyone's going to sit there and love you, and be able to like get your work fast, and you're not going to be in high demand. But
Hmm.
maybe that's like because your audience connects with a smaller group of people more intentionally and it has a deeper impact. Like maybe you're the
Yeah.
restaurant that sticks around for 2 years and like wins a ton of awards and then shutters because you can't keep the lights on. Like I guarantee people that will eat that meal will remember your meal 1,000,000% more than they remember like the fast food garbage they had the other day. So like just because the numbers and the metrics aren't matching up doesn't mean that the work that you do isn't important and that it's not going to reach the people that you need it to reach. And that is something that we all, if you are a creative, have to internalize with the entirety of your chest, because if you don't, you start end up putting out a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily taste the best, if I can continue beating this analogy into the ground. But like you make a lot of stuff that isn't aligned with who you are. And when I think when you are making
Hmm.
stuff that aligns with who you are and what you want, it's okay that it doesn't get the most amount of likes or engagement for now, because it will find the people it needs to find.
Hmm. 1,000%. So much to say on that. Yeah, it's like sometimes, you know, I'll write a story and I finish it and I just read it like 5 times. I'm like, wow, it just makes me happy that I actually created this thing, and I can't really believe it. And like, it could be just like a poetry, or it could be anything, and that just kind of gets to the heart of why we're doing what we're doing, and why the writers that we love we're doing the same thing. It's because, to quote Kurt Vonnegut, he says, "Create for no other reason than to make your soul grow." And that's just the classic debate of doing something for financial reasons or creating art. And if you want to pursue this path, it is 1,000% not going to be easy. And if you want to do anything creative, it is a great chance it's not going to get the recognition you want and the financial, you know, anything like that for a long time. But I think you're probably in the same boat where this is a lifelong pursuit, and it could take decades for, if it happens at all, for to make a big splash or to get like a best-selling book or something. And you, like we were saying before, you got to know why you're doing it, and that is because it makes your soul grow. As cheesy as it sounds, it's the truth. To create something, anything at all that like puts a smile on your face, I think that is why we're here.
Yeah.
And if I may ask, like, what is a piece of work that you've done that maybe didn't get the recognition, or it didn't even maybe get accepted, but you're like, wow, I just loved that. Like that made me so happy to write and fulfilled by it.
Hmm.
Sorry to put you on the spot with that one, but
No, it's all good. Um, I think, I think this is actually a story that did make a splash and it did
it
get
could
like
have, yeah,
recognition,
it could have done
but
both.
it was like it made a splash and it got recognition because I fought for it for so long. And
Mm.
that was a piece I wrote on Jane Austen's 250th birthday and like the celebrations that were happening for it for this year. She's a writer I really care about. And like, I just had a feeling like Bath, England, crazy as it sounds, I just had a feeling that like 2025 was Bath, England's year. Like, I thought it was like,
Wow.
I knew like since early last year, I had been campaigning to write a story about Bath, England as a travel destination. I had been lobbying for a story. Um, I had lobbied for it to go in like a where to go in 2025 list, and it got like um, it didn't get accepted for that list, and I was like really sad and frustrated by it. But then the New York Times came out with their like 52 places to visit in 2025, and the first one on the list was Bath, England, and I was like,
No way.
oh. I was like, yeah, I knew that this year was Bath's year. Like I just felt it in my bones. And then I went out and wrote a piece on it. And it like got picked up, and I think it did super well. But it was just really frustrating for me because I was like, oh, I could have like been ahead of this. Like I knew this trend was coming and I wasn't the first to break it. And that was like the thing that hurt, because I kept getting told no and
Hmm.
no and no and no on that story. But I knew that that was like the story of the year. And it
Hmm.
ended up like making a splash and like doing the numbers that it did. But it was the frustration for me of like it not us like me not being the first person to cover it in the way that I wanted to, because like I just knew. And then after I covered it after the list had come out, and then I looked kind of like I was copying it, blah blah blah. So
Right.
frustrating. um but that, I think that was like one of those moments where I had lobbied so hard for that story. And even after like the New York Times list came out, people were telling me like, I don't know if this is like the New York Times already covered it, like should we do something on it, blah blah blah. um and then it ended up like really really taking off. And I think that's, I don't know, to this day I'm still salty that I didn't write that story earlier. But yeah, I think
Is that
that's,
where Jane Austen's from?
she's not from Bath, but Bath is like obsessed with her. They love
Hmm.
her. Like they have the Jane Austen tours there, and they have like so many. They have the Jane Austen Center there where you can go, and like it's basically an entire museum dedicated to her life. When like everybody dresses up in like period costumes there and like tells her story, and it's very like eclectic and eccentric and weird, and in the best way possible. And like a ton of the like Pride and Prejudice movies and TV show were filmed in and around that area. So, um,
Gotcha.
yeah. But it's just, it was frustrating because I was like, dude, I know this is gonna hit. And everyone was like, Kat, you're being a nerd, and that's weird. And I'm like, being a nerds have so much buying power. Like, I believe in the nerds. Like, we need to stand up for them. And then,
Mm,
and then it worked out. But I am salty that that took so long to come out on my end.
interesting. So what? Yeah, what is the like? What trends are you seeing in travel right now? You said like cultural travel. Yeah, what's kind of going on in the travel space with obviously there's a lot going on in the world that's kind of frightening, but then also lots of new possibilities and interesting stuff. And coming from your perspective as well, it's interesting to hear like now that we kind of know what's out there, all these incredible cities and stuff, what has changed with how people like choose a place to visit? And like with me, I'm thinking like, what are my top places? And I just be interested in your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think a cultural travel is so so important and undercovered and under discussed, but I think so many people are making decisions on where to go based off of their favorite book or their favorite TV show or like their favorite musician. Like people are traveling for culture at unprecedented rates, and I think that we have to be acknowledging that more, and figuring out ways to speak to
Mm,
those audiences more directly. I also think, like, unfortunately, because of the way that the world works, like for Americans, domestic travel is really big right now. And travel dupes are going to be really hot for the next year, I think. What I mean by a travel dupe is like, dupes for Paris and North America, like places where you
oh
can,
wow.
yeah, like places that feel like France, but it's actually in Texas. Like, I think that's going to be big for Americans this year. And for international travelers, the trend is going to be going anywhere that's not the United States, because we're not, I think, on a policy level, we're not being as welcoming to our visitors as we could be. And they are we there's a culture of fear here for international travelers, which
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense and is very disheartening. But I think that means that as Americans now we have to like work on domestic travel a little bit more, and like visiting places within the country to try and help them out, because they're going to be struggling. And also it's in some ways the safer alternative to leaving the country, because there's so many barriers and difficulties and now visa payments that you're going to have to make if you want to go out of the country. If you're an American looking at international travel, I think the Balkans, are like a region that are going to be super hot and blow up in the next year. I think Montenegro for me is like my top travel destination for the rest of the year, and I am and Albania as well. And if anyone can make it to a
Hmm.
beach in Montenegro or in Albania, please send me your photos because I'm probably going to die from jealousy because they just look beautiful and amazing right now. Is there anything else? Oh, and then like we I've been talking about this a ton, but like traveling for events. Like the World Cup is going to be
Yeah.
here supposedly next year, so cross your fingers and hope that it still goes through. There's also like the rise in people traveling for Formula 1 and for
Hmm.
like last year with the Paris Olympic or yeah, it was in Paris. The Paris Olympics, like people are leaving their houses more than ever to go to these once in a lifetime kind of events. And so
Hmm.
checking the calendar for what's coming up and what big button events are going to be hosted where, I think is really exciting. And figure when you're there, like actually going and visiting the city you're in and not just going to all of the themed events, I think is going to be super impactful for people who are looking for more bang for their buck for travel. Mm, yes, those are all the things off the top of my head right now.
Sweet. Yeah, for sure. Like I went to a few weeks, like a month ago, to Colorado for a music festival, but it was just like one. I don't know if you know Pretty Lights. It's kind of a niche.
Yeah,
Uh, you do,
yeah, yeah.
and it was so like a whole like 3 nights just put on by this one um, group pretty much, and it was so cool. And I think like I mean obviously music festivals are not a new thing, but I think we're investing more in experiences and traveling for these events and doing it around. I don't know. It does seem like traveling domestically in the US is pretty hot right now, and I know I love it. But also doing some international traveling coming up. But did want to ask, we're going to wrap up promptly here, but how did you get started with Afar?
Oh, to be honest, I just like had applied to a staff position, kind of on a whim. I had just accepted another gig doing a reporter on like a desk for a small like uh bi-weekly periodical. I think it's bi-weekly or it was a weekly periodical. And it was, I was covering crime and it was very much not aligned with what I
Wow.
wanted to do. Um, and uh, I had applied to Afar before I got that gig, took that gig, and then Afar reached out to me and were like, "Hey, would you like to come work for us?" And even though it was not the best financial decision for me because I had to take a pay cut, I was like, absolutely, because I want to work on travel and strengthen this muscle. So honestly,
Hmm.
people will tell you not to like do the mass apply thing on LinkedIn, but that's how I got this gig. I'm not gonna lie, like I did the mass apply on LinkedIn and it worked out for me. So
Hmm.
do the mass apply and message your recruiters. That's all I can offer
Yeah.
for right now.
Sweet. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Hmm.
And then lastly, yeah, what's coming next for you? What are you working on? What are you excited about?
So for what's next, I've decided I just took the leap this week. I'm going freelance. I'm gonna do a little bit more travel and cultural coverage for some like a wider array of publications, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to spend way more time actually traveling because I think when you have a staff job anywhere, in the like travel media space, you end up not traveling as much as you could. So I'm gonna go and
Hmm.
spend some time around the world. And I'm currently in the process of actually, for all the chat we've had today, I'm launching a print magazine very soon. Not very soon. It's probably going to come out next year, but I am right now working on focusing on intentional and robust travel experiences for like travelers under 35. So I'm accepting pitches. I'd love to have more conversations with folks who are interested in writing for the younger traveler set. Um, and I'm going to be building that out for the foreseeable future.
Oh yeah, that sounds amazing. Across the board. Very cool stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining me here and for having this awesome discussion. This has been great for me and just always so cool to talk to somebody who's, in the same field that I'm in and feels like we're going at it together and trying to figure the stuff out and figure out life and just enjoying it. So thank you again. And where can people find you if they want to keep up with what you're doing?
Um, Folks can find me on Instagram at cat very popular cat with a C, um, which was fun when I was a pop culture reporter, and now makes less sense. But you know what? My SEO is too good on it, so I have to keep it. So that's cat very popular on Instagram, and then you can find me on Substack, cultureshockbycat.substack.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody for tuning in. We love you guys and peace.
Bye. Thanks.